What's going on YouTube? Today I bring you my number 5 power rank team for the 2021 NFL season, and as you saw by the title, that is the Los Angeles Rams. This is a team that people immediately got very high on and then started to cool off a little bit, but to me, I basically just see them as this year's Rams. This is a team that is like filled to the brim with talent, great depth and some great youth as well, but like to me they were just that quarterback away. Jared Goff was not as bad as people made him out to be, but he was definitely far from the guy they needed. And I feel like Matthew Stafford is one of the more underappreciated guys in the NFL because I fully believe that Matthew Stafford would have been a top 5 quarterback of the last decade if he wasn't on the Lions. Like, I fully believe that he would have been, considered one of the best. So I think getting him over here, technically, he's really just now entering his prime. So, you still could maybe get the best football yet from Matthew Stafford. But without further ado, let's get into it. And I guess we already started kind of talking about quarterback. But like I just said, Matthew Stafford, really he could just be entering his prime now. I think he's 32. I want to say 32 or 33. Even if he's 34. Like, a quarterback's prime is like his early 30s to, kind of late 30s anymore. And that's why it makes the guys like, Patrick Mahomes so scary because he's only like, 25, 26? Yeah, so, I mean, Matthew Stafford, like I said, I feel like if he would have been on a team, literally any other team besides the Lions, this last decade, I feel like he would be considered, a top 5 quarterback of the last decade, because he's so talented. Like, there's a reason he went number 1 overall back in 2009. Like, he's got that arm, he's got it all, and I feel like this Rams offense is a good fit for him. I just really wish my Broncos could have gotten Matt Stafford, but, regardless, like, the Rams, they got a good quarterback here. Now, the backups or whatever, John Walford, Bryce Perkins, Duck, not the best guys in the world, far from it, but you do have, in my opinion, a top 10 quarterback, and, I mean, just some bad depth though. So for right now, I'll give it an A-, because that depth, geez. But Matthew Stafford has actually been pretty good. Well, for a while, he's dealt with some injury issues more recently. But like he has for a while in his career, he did stay pretty healthy. So, and I think obviously the offensive line's a bit better here. Although the Lions did upgrade this offseason, that doesn't really help Matt Stafford out. Running back. So they lost Cam Akers for the season. I don't think that's as big of a loss as some people are making out to be. Now, obviously, I don't think Darrell Henderson, he wasn't Cam Akers. He's not Cam Akers right now. There's not that big of a gap, obviously, but, Darrell Henderson is obviously still a bit of a downgrade from Cam Akers. I feel like Akers was getting pretty overrated. Like, I understand that this running back class from last year, like, if you really look at it, like, this running back class from a couple years ago was really freaking good. I mean, off the top of my head, you had Cam Akers, DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, Antonio Gibson, James Robinson, although he went undrafted. Like, Zach Moss really hasn't even got going yet. Like, that was a very good running back class. And it kind of felt like everyone was projecting, like, every single one of those guys to have some big breakout year this year. And that's just not going to happen. You're not going to have 7 or 8 guys, all break out. But and Cam Akers just was one of the guys that I didn't feel was going to be a breakout guy. Darrell Henderson, though, I do still like. I actually think he has a legit shot to kind of prove himself as the number 1 running back going forward. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets, close to, if not 1,000 yards this year, and really puts Cam Akers on, the back burner next year. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. Now, the rest of the running backs here are not very good. Jake Funk's at least someone to take note in. I think he was also, or he's a rookie, I'm pretty sure. Or at the very least, he was drafted last year, but I'm pretty sure he's a rookie this year. But yeah, the running back, it's not very deep. And I mean, obviously right now, Henderson's far from the best running back in the NFL, but I think he has some potential to maybe break out this year. And so for right now, I'll give it a D+, because it's really not good. But, it's probably one of the worst rooms, to be honest with you, but it's still kind of hard to get a low grade running back just because they're so replaceable. At wide receiver, this is a pretty good group. Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods make up one of the best duos in the NFL. Cooper Kupp, a majorly underappreciated player. I think he was always a little bit held back by Jared Goff, and so now I think Matt Stafford coming in can, really let Cooper Kupp play like Cooper Kupp, and I think really Kupp could be pushing for like a top 10 receiver role this year, or receiver position this year. He could push to be a top 10 receiver in the league. And Robert Woods is just one of those guys that year in, year out just comes in and does his work. He'll get close to 1,000 yards and that's good enough, And I think with Stafford here now that you're going to be a lot more focused on the passing game, and you have a guy that can actually pass, with a McVay scheme and stuff, I think, Robert Woods could also enjoy a big year. Van Jefferson was pretty good last year. I don't think he'll be anything special like some people do, but, he is at least a solid guy. Deshaun Jackson brings some very good speed to the Rams, even though he's like 33, 34. Tutu Atwell, not a guy I was very high on. A lot of people love Tutu Atwell. I don't. I just don't like those smaller receivers in general. That's why I'm not a big fan of Devontae Smith. I just don't feel like he'll be anything much. I don't feel like Van Jefferson will be any much. Regardless, you do have 5 really solid receivers here, at the very least solid guys, and you do have one of the best duos in football, and so for that I will give it an A. At tight end, you lost Gerald Everett, which was a bit of a hit. I was a big fan of Gerald Everett, but he was your backup anyways. I mean, Tyler Higbee is one of the more underrated guys, again, in the NFL. He also just constantly went in and year out. You knew what you were getting, and that's what he gave you. And again, I feel like with Matt Stafford here now, he might also enjoy a better, maybe one of his best years. The rest of the tight end room is whatever. I did like Bryson Hopkins. I think he's a guy that could potentially take over for Higbee, although I think Higbee's only like 28, so probably not anytime soon, but I do like Hopkins' athleticism and, upside. So tight end, you have a pretty underrated guy there as well. And someone with some upside, but the rest of the room is really not anything worth talking about. And so I'll give it a B for right now. At left tackle, Andrew Whitworth. Declining. He's still played really solid for the fact that he's like 39 now, I want to say. I mean, he's here for another year probably. This is probably his last year unless he decides to come back again. Regardless, he's actually still a really solid tackle for the Rams. So, yeah, I mean, he's old. He should have retired a couple years ago probably, but he's still been playing pretty solid for the Rams. So, Whitworth, pretty good. Joseph, I was going to say Joseph, and then it just have Joe. Joseph Noteboom is whatever as a backup, and no one else really worth talking about there. So, for right now, I'll give that room a B+. Like, Whitworth, again, he's old, but he still gives you solid play. At left guard, David Edwards. He's solid. These 3 inside offensive linemen, excluding Brian Allen, because, he's not really started before. So, David Edwards and Austin Corbett, they're solid guys, but for some reason, they just play better than they should. So, Edwards, no depth. He's really not that good in his own right, but he always plays better than he is. So, for that, I'll give a C+, but, he shouldn't be that good, but he just plays that good for some reason. At center, you lost Austin Blythe. Which was a bit of a hit. I think Blythe was he was pretty solid for the Rams. I don't think Brian Allen's going to be very good as a starter there for you. So, unfortunately, again, no depth. Maybe he's sort of similar to Edwards and Corbett, where he just plays better than he should for some reason. That's just how the Rams end up playing every year. But even if he does play better, I still see that at best being like a D, so I'm going to give it a D-. I don't know if he'll be horrible enough to call it an F, but it's pretty close to that, so I'll give it a D-. Right guard, Austin Corbett. He's a close to solid guard. No depth once again, and just a guy that, again, plays better than he should most of the time. So I'll give him a C-. And then at right tackle, Rob Havenstein, not quite sure which one it is also a pretty solid tackle. I think he's, kind of that tier under Whitworth. He's a bit younger, though, obviously. Yeah, he's a solid tackle. Not much else to say besides that. He's solid tackle, no depth, and at least he brings good play though. And so that'll get you a C plus. So the offensive line, like I said, like it doesn't look that good on paper, but it plays better every year than it should. You do have a really talented receiver group. You upgraded big time at quarterback, because like quarterback is like, even if you were to switch up from like the 16 to 14 quarterback, that's a big upgrade. Quarterback is just so valuable to where it's like moving up from probably like a guy in the 20s to a top 10, I feel like is going to put this offense into that elite category, because this was already an offense that, you know, still did great, like even with Jared Goff. So I just think giving Matthew Stafford, who has that big arm, he's just a smarter quarterback, he's more talented, I think this offense is going to be elite next year. And so offense not an issue. And I mean, really, should the defense be much of an issue either? Probably not. I don't know if it'll necessarily be the number one defense again, but it's still going to be top 5. You know, you start out with Ashawn Robinson, who has a bit of potential. I mean, you know, doesn't really matter when you have one certain guy on this line, but, you know, obviously having that other guy on this line helps you out a bit. You're probably not going to see many double teams because of that. So Ashawn Robinson, you know, a guy with some potential, but he's not really good in his own right. They picked up Ernest Brown, which I didn't like. I'm just not a big fan of Rams draft picks, so luckily they trade them away. And, you know, they get guys like Matt Stafford and Jalen Ramsey out of it. But, you know, Ernest Brown, I'm not a big fan of him. Ashawn Robinson, I like the upside, but just not much in his own right. So that room, it's not very good. I don't think it's quite worth an F, but I'll give it a D just because of the upside with those two guys. At nose tackle, Sebastian Joseph Day, I do think is a solid nose tackle. Once again, obviously helps because of the guy he plays right next to. But regardless, we'll get to him in a second. Sebastian Joseph Day, solid tackle. Bobby Brown, whatever, is a backup. So once again, similar. I think Joseph Day is better than Robinson, but there's no depth here, and so that moves up a bit. But it's still just going to be it's still going to be a D plus for me. But you know, again, now we move on to Aaron Donald, who, like, do we need to talk much about this? Like, maybe this is a bit of a hot take. I've certainly had people who disagree with me. I feel like Aaron Donald is already a top 10 defensive player of all time, and I feel he could finish number 1. I know people scoff at the idea of someone being called better than, like, Lawrence Taylor, but, like, come on. Look at Aaron Donald. This dude dominates, and I mean dominates, in the modern day of football, getting sack numbers that he should just not be able to get at the role he plays. Like, I know a lot of people feel like he stole the award from TJ Watt. No, that award was, even I at first was like, well, how did TJ Watt not win that? Because it's Aaron Donald's award to win, and it's Aaron Donald's award for you to take it away. Aaron Donald is just, quite honestly, the most dominant football player I've ever watched. I don't think he's better than Patrick Mahomes, just because I do think quarterback is more valuable than pass rusher, even though pass rusher is probably like second most valuable. But Aaron Donald, don't let that take away. Because again, this is probably a hot take. I think Aaron Donald will go down as the greatest defensive player ever, but I think Patrick Mahomes will go down as the greatest player ever. And so that's really the splitting factors right there. And again, I know those are hot takes. They're obviously predictions. Obviously, Mahomes isn't even close to the greatest player of all time right now. But I do think Aaron Donald is top 10 already all time, and I do think he can end his career by being number 1. The dude's just absolutely insane. And so, like, even though there's no depth along this defensive line, even though the two guys beside him are meh, Aaron Donald by himself makes this an A+, because Aaron Donald, again, just the most dominant football player I've ever watched. So, no, I've already said too much about Aaron Donald. You know who he is. You know how dominant that man is. Moving on to Justin Hollins at one of the outside linebacker spots. Justin Hollins, I always actually kind of liked him back when he played for Denver. I thought he also held a nice bit of potential, and Once again, like a lot of these guys here, obviously it helps he plays on the same pass rush as Aaron Donald, but I do think he is starting to show a little bit of that upside. Terrell Lewis was one of the draft picks I did like from the Rams. I think he also holds a bit of potential, but really it's just potential with the weak side linebacker right now. So for right now, I'll give it a D+, but it can improve. I feel like one of those guys will kind of emerge sometime soon. At inside linebacker, easily the worst position on the roster, and it's not even close. Again, these guys are going to play better with the talent around them, but like I didn't like the pickup of Ernest Jones. That was such a reach to me, and the starters are just not good. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know who Kenny Young is. I'd imagine Micah Kaiser and Troy Reeder are probably the starters again. And being that, they're a fine duo, but that's just because they're both bad, you know? Again, play gets improved when you have talent around you like that, but they're not very good. And I didn't like the pickup of Ernest Jones. To me, this is an F room. It's the worst linebacking room in football, probably, unless I think about a worse one. I think this is the worst linebacking class in the NFL, or linebacking room, so it's going to get you an F. And again, take that with a grain of salt when you have guys like Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey here, but whatever. At the other outside linebacker room, strong side, Leonard Floyd enjoyed a really good year last year. I mean, again, Aaron Donald and Brandon Staley, but maybe he found his footing. I mean, who knows? You know, maybe he actually just finally, figured it out. Maybe that coach was just all it really needed. Aaron Donald is part of that. I'm not even going to act like it's not. But, regardless, he still broke out. I don't know if he'll play the same as next year, but I think he'll still be fine for them. No depth, though. We don't really know if he'll play the same. Leonard Floyd, by himself here, going to give you a C- for right now. Maybe it's a little bit low, but I just feel like, it's one of those more uncertain players right now where you don't really know if you're going to get the same thing from him, so... And then moving on to cornerback. I'm going to go a little crazy with one guy in specific here, but Jalen Ramsey, best corner in football. I know, Xavier Howard just went off, Jaire Alexander is elite. I'm sorry, but Jalen Ramsey is, again, one of the best corner. Actually, probably the best corner I've ever watched. That's excluding guys like Deion Sanders. Obviously, don't come at me for saying he's better than Deion Sanders. He's just the best corner I've ever watched. He's just such shut down. It's another one of these guys where I shouldn't have to sit here and explain. If you should know who Jalen Ramsey is if you're a football fan. And yeah, he's here for the Rams. I mean, that makes a scary defense right there with, one of the most dominant one of the most dominant defensive football players of all time, and, just a shutdown corner in Jalen Ramsey, who, again, just to me is the number one corner. That's scary. And so Jalen Ramsey, great, obviously. Darius Williams is a guy that I want to talk about because I think he's finally starting to get a little bit of the respect he deserves, but he's still not a household name like he should be. Now, yes, I understand he's the number 2 corner to Jalen Ramsey. He's got Aaron Donald pass rushing for him. I don't care. Darius Williams is so underrated, it hurts me. It pains me that people do not know who this guy is. He should be a household name. And I think he's probably going to be let go after this year because I'm pretty sure this is the last year of his contract. I'm confident that he's going to earn himself a big contract and he's going to go somewhere and he's going to be elite as the number 1 corner and finally get the recognition he deserves. Darius Williams needs to be a household name, people. It makes me mad that he's not. Regardless, they make up the best corner duo in the NFL. I know people love Marlon Humphrey and I cannot forget his name. Come on, think. Marlon Humphrey and what's his name? Not Jimmy Smith. Number 2 corner on the Ravens. I will come up with his name. Excuse me. But Jalen Ramsey and Darius Williams is the best duo in the NFL to me. I feel like the top 3 has got to be William Jackson and Kendall Fuller, Marlon Humphrey and whoever the Ravens number 2 is, and Jalen Ramsey and Darius Williams. And I just feel like Ramsey and Williams takes the cake for me. I truly do think Williams is a top 10 corner. So when you have 2 top 10 corners on the same team, come on now. His defense is scary. David Long is also a really solid corner here, and they added Robert Rochelle, who, they don't play a ton of slot corners, but Robert Rochelle is a pretty solid slot corner, so you want to use him like that, that's great. But otherwise, he's a okay kind of upside corner to have there. Regardless, you have the best corner duo in football, 2 top 10 guys, a really solid guy behind them, so that's going to earn you an A+. And then at free safety, Taylor Rapp, I imagine will be starting the year, but one of my personal favorite guys right now is Terrell Burgess. I feel like he'll be starting by the end of the year. I really do love Terrell Burgess. He was playing great before he got hurt last year, so he's another guy that I feel could be like a breakout type guy, and people are going to know his name a lot more after the season, so I really like him. No one behind them, but you do have a nice duo right now, and, Rapp solid, Burgess, I feel like he'll be more than solid by the end of the season, so I'll give that room a C for right now. And then Jordan Fuller, no depth there, but Jordan Fuller is also a really solid safety. I think he's a bit better than Rapp, but you still do have one of the better safety duos in the NFL there with Fuller and Rapp, and Fuller is, again, just solid, but no depth, so I'll give that a C as well. But I think it definitely can improve with a guy like Burgess, and once again, it's going to be helped out by the fact that you're playing alongside Darius Williams, Jalen Ramsey, and Aaron Donald. But that defense, it's freaking scary, as I just broke down. And then moving on to the special teams, Matt Gay is a fine kicker anymore. Johnny Hecker, though, he is he's my number 2 punter. I know probably going to disagree with that. Brett Kern to me is the number 1, but don't let that take away from the fact that Johnny Hecker is still an elite punter and the number 2 pretty easily. It's a pretty big gap between 2 and 3. And then returner, I guess, can really be anyone. I feel like Deshaun Jackson makes the most sense as a returner, but, they don't have him listed here. And the special teams itself is fine. So this is a really good team, as you just saw. I feel like they were really just a quarterback away, and they got their quarterback. So I feel like they might be this year's Buccaneers. Super talented team, and then you just need that quarterback, and I think he got it here with Matthew Stafford. So now let's go take a look at their coaching culture and schedule. And taking a look here at their schedule, it's really not that tough. Now, there are some difficult games here. The division games will be tough as always, but there are some teams here that aren't going to be that difficult to handle. The Raiders, the Bears, potentially the Colts, depending on their health at the time. The Giants, the Lions, obviously, the Texans, obviously, Jaguars. Those are all going to be some easy games. There are some tougher games here that are, definitely winnable. Chargers, Broncos, Colts, like I said. I think the 49ers, because, obviously they're a division game as well, but I think, the 49ers, Cardinals, and Seahawks are all very winnable games for, in my opinion, the top team in the division. And I can really see this team beating even teams like the Buccaneers. Buccaneers, Packers, Ravens, Vikings. I could see the Rams beating these teams maybe somewhat easily. Now, of course, they're not going to be easy games, especially the Buccaneers, but they're it's not far-fetched at all to say that the Rams can definitely beat those teams. The schedule is not very difficult. Sean McVay is the brightest young coach in the NFL. If every other team is trying to copy your offensive scheme, you're doing something right. So that's great, obviously. You have a scary offense. It was already scary, and now you add a very smart top 10 quarterback. Your defense, probably not going to be number 1 like last year, but it will still be an elite defense. I think Brandon Staley might hurt the defense a bit, but not that much, just because when you have guys, again, Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, Darius Williams, that's just a scary defense. So for me, the team's in place, the coach is there, the culture's there, the schedule's on their side. I think they're the strongest team in their own division, even though it is the hardest division in football. To me, the Rams are this year's Buccaneers. That doesn't necessarily mean they're winning it all, but this is going to be a scary, talented team. But that is going to be the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Doing that as fast as I can now. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.